What up, my channel? Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie and you're watching. Hi, hello, welcome friends. I am so excited about this video because I've got some ranting to do. I'm excited to get this ranting off of my chest because look, there's just so many things that irritate me in books. I love to read. I love reading. I have pet peeves. I have a pet and his name is Peeve, you know what I'm saying? And so I decided that I would make a video where I talk about things that I just hate in books. My most popular series on this channel is Books That Wasted My Time, where I talk about books that were a waste of time. And so I thought it might be fun to do a kind of a different sort of rant video. So I'll leave the playlist of the Books That Wasted My Time videos that I filmed in the past down below if you want to check those out. Oh, one of the tropes that just absolutely grinds all of my gears is when the main character or someone very close to them, usually it is a love interest, has something to tell the main character and they end up getting cut off, or the main character gets cut off. And because they get cut off, the other person ends up finding out this big secret that person A originally wanted to tell them but was interrupted.
And then feels utterly betrayed.
I cannot stand that trope. I can see it coming a mile away. You always know how it's going to end. It's just tired, it's played out, and I hate seeing it in books. I feel like it's such a lazy writing device. I just can't stand it. It also really irritates me when person A is trying to tell person B something. Then person B cuts in and says something that makes the other person feel guilty, and they then, as a result, decide not to tell the other person what they were thinking. You'll see this with characters who will,
See, even you're confused right now.
let's say that one character is trying to break up with another character, right? And so they have been gearing themselves up for this conversation and they finally are like,
yeah, I'm gonna break up with you. Thank you, next situation.
And then right as they're in the middle of breaking up, the other person interrupts and it's like,
hey, I just bought us tickets to the spring fling in Hawaii and it's all expenses paid and my whole family's gonna be there and we're all so excited and
thank you for being, like, says all of these things. And then they're like,
oh, but I cut you off. What did you want to tell me?
sorry, my neck itches, like, what's going on here? That irritates me so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I want to see this trope sink into the bottom of the ocean. Lazy writing. And it's not even that it's lazy writing. It's just so obvious. It's so obvious. I hate this in movies and TV shows too. You see this all the time in movies and TV shows. Comment down below if you've been in one of these situations in real life. And how did you handle that situation? I would love to know. That is going to be the comment homework of this video. I really want someone else's opinion on this because I just cannot stand it. Then we have to talk about absent parents, specifically in YA. I find it so hard to suspend my disbelief that parents are just letting their kids go on these like magical adventures, be gone for an entire weekend without checking in, and they have very little to do with the story. They have such little involvement in their child's lives. Now, there's going to be a caveat here. That is a lot of parents, right? That is so many parents, unfortunately, and it's sad and it sucks. But if that's the case in the book, like, that needs to be addressed, right? It's kind of just seen in YA literature as like the norm, is that parents are conveniently written out of the story so that the kids can kind of have these adventures and that the plot can take place. That irritates me. And I think a big part of this is cultural for me. Now, before I launch into this, I am not in any way saying, because I know there's always going to be at least one person in the comment section, I am not saying that non-Black parents are not involved in their kids' lives. That's not what I'm saying. Where I'm going with this is that, like, I'm Black and Latinx. As a part of my culture, like the literal culture of being Afro-Latinx, parents are involved with your life in a way that is different than white culture. Again, I'm not saying anything is better, more or less, whatever, but I'm saying it is different. The way that Black Latinx parents engage with their kids is different. And so culturally, it's so hard for me to just accept when parents are just not in the story. You are missing a large part of this character's life. That's what irritates me. The role of family in the lives of kids it bugs me. And it makes it difficult for me to relate to the character, because even if you don't like your family, right, they still have a role in your life. And of course, this is not the case for everyone, right? I don't want to like make sweeping generalizations, because people have so many different ways of growing up. Their family structures look so many different ways. Not everybody has parents, etc. So I am specifically talking about this weird agreement in commercial young adult literature that parents can just not exist in the story for the sake of the story itself. I hate it. That was one of the things that I loved about A Lotso Way by Darcy Little Badger. The book wasn't my favorite. I think I gave it like a 3-star. But what I loved about that book was how the parents were part of the plot. They were characters in the story and they felt full. Like, oh, loved it. Next up on the list is overdone commercial concepts. This is especially rampant within the thriller genre. I'm so tired of picking up a book and the book reads something like this. Stacy is trying to escape a hard life. She has secrets. And she moves next door and finds that her perfect idyllic neighbors might have secrets of their own. Samantha has it all. The house, the money, the husband. But the husband is keeping secrets. I'm so sick of someone's keeping secrets in thrillers. I know that is the nature of so many thrillers. Just find an exciting way. It's something that I just really hate in books. I find that even when you find out what the secret is, it's just no, honey, no. I love thrillers. I love thrillers. But these commercial thrillers that BookTube is obsessed with, I just can't. I try to read them. I try to enjoy them. The top names that BookTube loves, mind you, the people I'm about to name, I have not read all of their books, so I'm not like giving them as examples, but Anonymous Girl, Reckless Girls, why are there so many girls? The Girl on the Train. Just like all of these thriller books tend to have synopsises that don't speak to me, that just bore me, and they all sound the same. Even the books that have like a creative spin, like Reckless Girls, for example. Reckless Girls is like a secluded island, like whodunit kind of situation. Do you see what I'm saying? It's tired. I want something more. It still feels like a stereotypical thriller beach read. And I'm bored. Let's talk about emotional dependency in books. This is something that I absolutely hate. I hate seeing two characters be wildly emotionally dependent on another. Now, I am talking specifically because emotional dependency is something that does have a place in books, because this is something that people struggle with, and there's absolutely no shame or shade in struggling with this issue. But what irritates me about emotional dependency in books is when you have a novel where the protagonist is a very vulnerable person. They are grieving, they're struggling in some way, and the solution to this is falling in love with another person, melding into them, being unable to live without them, and that being seen as romantic. A really good example of this is Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. This book offended me personally. I do love Leah Johnson, and I loved her first book. I love that she writes for queer girls. I think she's a wonderful person, but I do take issues with this book. I'm not saying it's problematic. It's not for me, right? Totally okay to love it. Cool. This is a perfect example though, because our protagonist, Olivia, is a person who really struggles with feeling like she needs to have a romantic partner, and she feels unworthy if she's not in a relationship and having someone like chasing after her or being able to chase after someone else. And this is not a spoiler alert because it's a romance novel. You know they're going to end up together. Instead of her working through this issue with a therapist, her kind of solution is to start a new romance with a girl that she met 2 days ago. It's not healthy behavior. Like, I don't care what happened in those 2 days. It's just not healthy behavior, especially if you are already an emotionally vulnerable person. That's continuing the cycle. Really upset me, and it did not sit well with me for personal reasons. This book is a really good example of me just not liking emotional dependency in books. It's not that I don't like emotional dependency in books, it's that I don't like when that's the solution to a character's problems. It bugs me. Number 5 on this list is a rushed ending. This is just one of the most offensive out of all of these tropes, because a rushed ending is just essentially you as a writer. You write this amazing, beautiful story, and then you throw all of the hard work that you have done out of the window, because unfortunately the ending can make or break a novel, because it's the part of the novel that is like the most fresh. Your impression at the end of the novel is really what allows you to solidify all of your opinions. It's so rare that you're like,
yeah, I hated the ending, but I loved the first 2 parts and I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. It's like my favorite book.
you know what I mean? It's so rare that you have a favorite book where you hate the ending of it. If you are a person who does have a favorite book with an ending that you don't like or hate, comment down below. Let me know what book it is and what your situation with it is. I'm very, very curious to know if I'm wrong in this regard. A really good example of rushed endings is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson, as well as Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. As y'all know, Tiffany D. Jackson is one of my favorite authors. She writes amazing thriller, horror, mystery books for Black youth, for Black adults. And I just think that she's so brilliant, so underrated. This book is getting an adaptation. This is Get Out meets Haunting of Hill House, and it is so, so good. I gave this a 4 or 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is the first TDJ that I've not given 5 out of 5 stars to, and I still really, really enjoyed it. I loved so much about this book, and I'm gonna do a dedicated review at some point. It's just amazing. And it's one of those books that is so complex and there's so much to analyze thematically. You can read it on surface level, or if you're like really familiar with Black culture and themes of mental health and history, there's so much to dissect and pick out of this book. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. And the ending was brilliant too. But the problem is this book is so much more complex than meets the eye, and so much was being built throughout the novel.
So much was going on.
Behind the scenes, there were different underworkings escalating towards this great crescendo, and the ending had so much going on. And that is not a problem, but the problem is it all took place in a span of such short pages, and it just wasn't enough for everything to unfurl. And I feel like TDJ wanted to kind of just hit the reader, shock them sort of thing. And so if you are the kind of person who enjoys that, and I mean, it is a thriller, so it makes sense why she would go that route. But if you're the kind of person that enjoys that, maybe the ending won't be an issue for you, but it was for me. That being said, it's still such an amazing book. And the other book that I mentioned, this is Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I loved this book. It was so amazing. Like, it was on track to be 5 out of 5 stars. If you know my tabbing system, you know that these are all good signs. I have yellow, green, I've got purple, I've got pink, all of those are good. And orange is bad. And the end of this book here, I've got a lot of orange flags. The ending threw away everything that I enjoyed about this book because it was rushed.
Because it was rushed.
That is the issue with these 2 books. The endings were rushed. They were Mount Rushmore. You probably thought that was funny, didn't you? Next up, we have being told that the villain is bad and that the main character is good. Now, this is usually just a product of writing that needs to be stronger. I feel like a really good editor can help authors from making this mistake, but I'm still seeing it too much, so I don't know whose fault it is, but somebody needs to
fix it.
We see this a lot with villains in YA, where they are flat and just don't have the good rounding that we need. We know that these characters are bad, they're menacing and they're dark, but you don't know why. They don't really have a good backstory, or their backstory is very shallow, especially in comparison to the main character. Sorry about the airplane.
We're just gonna have to work through it.
There has been discussion and discourse in the booktube community about flat villains and how we're just so tired of them. I ranted about this a lot in my Serpent and Dove Wasted My Time video, where one of my major gripes was the villain so flat, literally a pancake, like a white wall. It was just absolutely the worst. I don't think a single person who read that book, even those of y'all who absolutely loved it, really truly felt that that villain was compelling. And I'm not talking about the mom, by the way. But even more so, that irritates me, and something that isn't talked about, is how there is sometimes this just understanding or acceptance that the main character is a good person, that they're a good person simply because they're the main character. I need more convincing. I need action through the story, through how they treat the characters, how they decide to choose to react to situations where their goodness is called into question. And finally, the last thing we're going to talk about as far as things that I hate in books. I saved the best for last, okay? This just It makes me pull my braids out. I would rather take a pair of tweezers and slowly pick all of the hair off of my body kind of situation than read another book with this trope. And that is where a character willingly walks into a trap. And I'm not talking about them not knowing that it is a trap. I am talking about main characters who know a trap is being set up for them specifically, and their friends are like, yo, don't go in there, it's a trap. And then they're like, I got a plan. Or it's not, I have a plan, it's them being hard-headed. They're like, nope, at least I know about it and I'll be further on guard. Like, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I don't like the strategy. And I just find it so reckless. And a big part of the reason why is because I really like strategic characters. I really like strategic, analytical characters that are forward thinking and just really sharp. And when I don't have a character like that, it's hard for me to root for them. Oh my God, how many planes are flying through the sky? It is late. Ugh. I can't stand it. It really irritates me. The cherry on top, though, is when it inevitably goes bad. And that's the thing that I usually hate the most about this. I think that is where my distaste for this writing device comes from, is that I've read too many books where their friends told them not to, they go into the trap and it ends horribly and then they have to get bailed out. It's entirely unnecessary. I just don't like it. But if there are any books where the character does willingly kind of walk into a trap and it ends well, or they do something brilliant, comment down below because I would love to know. So that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I am filming for my Patreon this month, Great Books with Awful Ratings. So if you want access to that video, my Patreon link is in the description box down below. But all my other social media links are in the description box as well. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let's talk about some tropes and things in books that you absolutely cannot stand. There's another airplane. I'm heated. I'm about to shut the airport down, y'all. Be safe, be good to yourself, be good to others, and I hope to see you soon.